I'd like to ask each of you if you have something you'd like to add to the remarks in the little presentations that you've given today. Is there something more you would like to add to it?
I'll let you go first.
Okay. I just would like to emphasize the fact of how powerful the third guideline is in the centering prayer practice. You know, centering prayer practice comes out of the Christian tradition, and it's really a question of let go, let God, put into a prayer form. And that third guideline says, you know, whenever you become aware or you're engaged with your thoughts, which is any sense perception or memory or sound or spiritual experience even, you ever so gently return to your sacred word and you let it come and you let it go. And so we resist no thoughts, retain no thoughts, react to no thoughts. We ever so gently return to our sacred word in the time of the prayer. And just want to add, you know, with all those thoughts we gave you about being perfect and so forth and so on, they're good thoughts, but if they run your life, then you're going to run out of gas because you're going to have a lot of competition from everybody else. So the prayer, the reason for the power of the prayer is the fact of being able to have a prayer practice that celebrates just consenting to God's presence in action and letting everything come and everything go. Someone was standing out there and said, you know, I got as many boats in my mind when I pray as the boats outside the window. I said, well, if you notice, for the sake of this conference, we tied them all up, you know. But you know, but as soon as we finish, they're going to start again, you know. So enjoy the peace. But I said, I got that big boat over here, and each one of us has a big boat, you know, a big something that keeps coming up in the silence. But can I just remind you, if it's coming up, what? It's going out. Want to repeat after me? If it's coming up, it's going out. So don't get angry. You know, it'd be like holding a sneeze and instead of coming through your nose. I'm serious. There is a natural desire on the part of even your body to let go of what's poisonous. And that applies also to your thoughts and feelings and everything else. So celebrate that. Don't get angry. I got this darn boat again. You say, well, just let it pass. Let it pass, for God's sakes. So ever so gently return to the sacred word. You be good there in the second row, please.
Yeah, you know, since we're on thoughts, I stumbled on a little method. If ever so gently doesn't work, there's a way in which you can stretch that. And this I have found is very effective when your thoughts kind of completely overwhelm you and ever so gently isn't working quite so well. Then what I've stumbled on, and you just do it once or twice, you don't do it through the whole meditation, is you just stop and concentrate on your breathing and take a deep breath, and just on the in-breath, see my sacred word is Yesu. So you extend the word to fill your whole breath, breathing in and out. So it'd be like this. Yay, and then zoo, just you get the idea. That what happens is...
You do that silently in a group?
Silently. No.
This is what in private now.
Well, no, this is in your mind you're doing this.
In your mind,
yeah.
Remember that.
Yeah. You don't stop and do that with your voice, but you do this in your mind. I should have been clear about that. It's like doing the Om, you know. And the thing is that what happens is thought doesn't have a chance to get in edgewise because you've completely closed off any entrance point for thought to think, because your breath and your sacred word have filled the space. And what happens is it has a way of calming the mind down. and then the thoughts are not quite so vociferously trying to dominate your mind, you know. So that's one thing. Another thing I was going to suggest on a different topic is I have noticed from my students in university that they really take to meditation like ducks to water. The youth do. And I really think there should be more outreach to university students with contemplative prayer, because with centering prayer, because I think the harvest is ripe. The harvest is there, and it needs to be worked with. They really love this experiential stuff, you know.
Okay. So what we thought we'd do is take some of these cards and read them, and then let you hear them, the solutions, and then maybe there may be a little comment, or they may not be. But since we asked for solutions, I think we should honor that and hear what they are. So each of us can take them, or any of us can answer them if there's a question, or if it feels like there needs to be a response. Be humble before God and before your neighbor.
About humility. Well, I think humility is, for this culture, one of the hardest virtues. But, you know, we're never taught humility in the college level university. That doesn't enter in. But I think that as this aphorism puts it, the humility begins with us, and it's an honesty about ourselves, about our strengths and weaknesses, but it's also a protection against manipulating others. Humility never manipulates. And that's very, very important. It doesn't try to control, but lets be and accepts how it finds others. Did you?
No, I'll just read this one. Question, are you ready? Today, yes. Yesterday, no. The week before, yes. My hope is that when called, it will be a yes, moment by moment, hour by hour, day by day. In our contemplative introductory workshop to centering prayer, and when it speaks about deepening our relationship with God, it says the mature fruit of the prayer is living in the present moment. Living in the present moment. I always like Psalm 116, I will walk in the presence of the Lord in the land of the living. You know, I'll repeat that again with the same emphasis. I will walk in the presence of the Lord in the land of the living. That means the real world with all the stuff that's there, because it's God's world. I always love when people, you know, leave a retreat and say, well, we have to go back to the real world. You were in the real world, you idiot. So I mean, you were. I mean, this is the rest of the story. You know, this was just as real as everything else. You know, God works in all of that. So I don't say idiot. It's just, you know, yes, I do say idiot sometime. I do.
Let's see. Do you want to read that?
Yes.
Okay.
This one is, I am willing as far as my love and faith will go. To which one could add St. Vincent de Paul's aphorism, love and faith are inventive to infinity. You know, don't put any limits on it. Don't count the cost.
Just something popped into my mind in response to that. A friend of mine one time said to me, I think the work that you're doing is the kind of work that you could be willing to die for, because it's a practice in dying, and it's the whole idea of letting go. But she said it's really worth dying for. I was complaining because I was getting tired. I've had it, I'm tired, I've had enough. She said, oh no, she said, the work that you're doing is worth dying for. And I really believe that in my heart. It is worth dying for. Okay, to continue prayer for Spirit's divine eyes when I look at others, to be reminded that I'm looking at the face of Christ in them. This is a solution.
Yeah, that's very, very powerful. And that was certainly what Mother Teresa was always talking about, that she could see the face of Christ in everyone, I think it's fairly easy to see the face of Christ in people we love, right? Or that little 16-month-old African-American baby that I saw. But it's much more challenging to see the face of Christ in one of today's lepers, a homeless person, because the homeless are the lepers of our society. And they're treated as non-persons. They're as Mother Teresa also says, they're unwanted and unloved. And I cannot help but to feel and experience God trying to teach us something through them. First of all, how attached we are to our comforts, our resources, and how fearful we are to be challenged when we look at them, because it challenges us. And what do? But I think that they're there for a reason. And Jesus says, the poor you will have with you always. But that doesn't mean that that doesn't mean we don't do anything. It means they're there for a reason. They're there because, first of all, because of that we don't wish to share as much as we could as a society. We don't share. We don't realize they're part of us. And secondly, they have the potential to bring the best out in us as we take in the challenge, as we accept it, and we allow it to speak to our conscience. Then they become our teachers.
Did you ever try to help somebody, or you did help someone, and later on when it was all done and they told the story, they said, I'll never forget when you told me this. And you never said that. You never said that. Have you ever had that happen to you? And what they said is much more powerful than what you could have ever thought of saying to them. And the reason for, I get that when after homilies, I'll be standing outside a church and people say, Father, you really hit the nail on the head when you said this. And I always go, well, thank you. And then I say to myself, I never said that. But you know why, picking up on this, it's if you're really open to prayer and realizing you're an instrument, not a solver of things, then the Jesus inside of you ministers to the Jesus inside of them, and your words are really like a stream carrying the boats of God's thoughts into that heart, far more powerful than your own, if you're open. So there's one thing of seeing the face of Christ in others, but there's the other that goes even deeper than that. So if you're really consenting, you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised how your words, which are very weak, or your thoughts that are very weak, all of a sudden take on a whole new energy. I just love watching it happen. It's just very powerful. And so celebrate that. You're standing there, someone, you don't know what to say to them, you just kind of think to yourself, Jesus, you and me better talk to them, Jesus and you and them, because I ain't getting anywhere. And Jesus says, well, thank you. Well, it gives me a chance to do something.
Working on being unconditional loving to those in my life. It just quickly reminds me of one of our theological principles in contemplative outreach, to serve with utmost charity, and how that peels off, and you think you're being charitable, and charity is good enough. But to serve with utmost charity is quite a commitment, quite a commitment.
Exactly. And I think, as I said earlier, that it's never convenient. Charity's never convenient. And it's interesting, when it's utmost charity, it's really not convenient. And I want to give you an example of that, because I've had quite a process with the homeless. From before I lived in cities, kind of had a kind of fear of them, and not knowing who they are, to a kind of perfunctory kind of relationship with them, and then eventually to really seeing them as persons, seeing who they are and responding. But there's this one person, Jerome, who lives, he lives in a metro stop, train stop in Chicago, a block or so from my home. And now he knows where I live. He's known where I live for like 5 years because a priest showed him where I lived. And so he comes to my home at night, sometimes late at night. And that's okay. I go out for a walk with him or whatever. But 4 or 5 years ago, I was in a mad rush to get downtown to school. And so I was walking up the street, and I really had to go fast to get the train. And there's Jerome. I said, no, if I stop now, it's a half hour. I can't talk to him now, I'm going to miss my class. So I went around the other way and walked all the way around the block, and he was there. So then I walked all the way back again, and then he was there. So then I threw up my arms and I said, okay, I'll talk to him. So it's never convenient. And I mean, in any situation in life, I mean, all the situations in life are about charity. And every situation in life, compassion is appropriate. A compassion is always appropriate. And and forgiveness. So yeah, I think we can never put a limit on it, and I agree, we have to do the utmost. That's what it's about.
We have a wonderful soul who hangs around St. Vincent's Church. Every time you see him, he's very, he's delightful, but he just hangs around the church. Every time I see him, he looks at me, he says, "Do you like me?" And I always go, "Of course I like you, I love you." "Oh, that's nice." But every time you see him, "Do you like me?" And then he says, "You going to work today? What route are you taking?" I say, "I'm going 95 to 24 to 287 to 23. "Oh, that's a good route." He doesn't drive.
A solution. Listen. Listen with compassion. If we learn anything in centering prayer, we learn how to listen. Listening. It's about listening at ever deepening levels of listening. I think that's one of the major fruits of centering prayer.
And that's not a virtue of American society, listening. And if you don't believe that, go to a cocktail party and just say something outrageous and see if they hear you. They're not listening. They're not listening to one another. They're just talking at each other. But and we're very much, in terms of this listening thing, that we're very much a seeing culture. Like, we're really into videos. And I'm thinking seriously, we should develop a thing like Video Divina. See? Video Divina. See? Yeah. I mean it as a joke, but I also am serious. That it would be an effective way. That's the way Americans listen, culturally. And then we could use that. We could develop a Video Divina that would work. I think listening.
Love it.
Yeah.
We'll market it.
We'll market it. Yeah. We'll get the patent on it. Huh? Okay. That'll close the budget gap. But listening is a skill that takes time. I think of it takes time to develop it. And contemplatives, if they don't have that, then they're in trouble. But I think of what Saint Benedict says in his rule, in the prologue to his rule. Listen with the ear of your heart. In other words, listen with deep attention. Devout listening is the kind of listening that we need.
I can't wait till you get home and share this day with your partners. I wonder how long they're going to listen. I get the biggest charge out of when people come back like from a 10-day intensive retreat and how was it, honey? And you start to try to tell them. How long do they really listen? That's all. You can almost see you can almost hear the wall coming down because they really want to tell you what they had to go through while you were away.
I think listening is another thing you'd like to think about. Listening is presence. Presence. Complete, total presence to one another. And I think that's sometimes how you want to receive what your loved ones say to you, with total presence. And they learn after a while that you'll give them that total presence. Let God use us without consulting us.
Ain't that the truth? And the thing is, it just, this sort of thing happens without you even realizing it, that it's happened. And that's the best way, About the thing of presence, I think that takes practice. Being present takes practice, because it takes mindfulness to be present. Because you'll notice that in our society, this anonymous mass society, that people tend not to be terribly present to one another. Like our cities, you realize the dominant emotion on the street is fear. Fear of intimacy. Fear of being present to one another. Like it's going to cost them something, And of course, people are tired, and it's very hard to be present when you're tired. But is there any other way to live life?
One of the greatest phrases of wisdom in my life was from an old timer who says, "Remember, Carl, God's work in your life is the interruptions."
Right, exactly.
To seek out and relate to my apartment building, to Muslims, Jews, Arabs, who are Christian and non-Christian.
Yes, the interfaith phenomenon. Yes, I think like everybody we meet, we have to see the difference as a gift. If someone is a Muslim, a Jew, a Hindu, Baha'i, whatever, or just don't see them so much as different. Or if you do see the difference, realize that's the particular gift of that tradition. What is that core gift that tradition has? And then to see the sameness, see their humanity. That we, down on the deepest level, we're the same humanity. And Dalai Lama often says that true dialogue is only possible between friends. So that particular Muslim or the Hindu or the Jew or the Buddhist or Baha'i or Theosophist or Jain or whatever Sikh, that each one of them has a capacity to be your friend and you to be their friend. So true dialogue with them is possible. And anyone who becomes your friend becomes part of your family, really. And that I noticed that in the Parliament of the World's Religions, where I've been involved for several years, is that we have over 50 religions participating in the Parliament, and we've become extraordinary friends over the years. I have a number of wonderful Muslim friends, and Hindus and Buddhists, Jews, Baha'is, all traditions. And I realized after a while, you don't see the differences, you just see the people. They're just people. And you realize that what's far more important than your differences are your relationships and maintaining the relationships. Keeping the door of dialogue open, that's what's important. And the urgent work of working together in the community of religions on the transformation of the world.
Teach and share contemplative experience with all children. Want to say it?
There's a family that I know where the mother and father both do centering prayer together. And before they had children, they had this little Lhasa, who every time they went into meditation, a little dog just sat right by them. Then along came their children, and the children followed the example of the little dog. Seriously, when mom and dad sat quietly, they sat, of course they stirred a little bit, but they knew this was time to be quiet. So I think there's, as Wayne mentioned, the fact of, that the college students are ripe for meditation. Stillness, I know some homes where stillness is an important quality that's instilled because the parents are still. And that's wonderful to see. There's this little dog, prayerful. Little Lhasas. I love little Lhasas. They're, licking away and everything else. And there's the children sitting just as quietly. Well, why? Because stillness has been transmitted by the parents. I'll tell you, transmit more by your presence than you realize. You really do.
We do. And the thing is, whereas children get bored in church, most children, they wouldn't get bored in that situation at home seeing their parents do that. That's far more meaningful to them because that's their world. And there's a book called Teaching Meditation to Children. You should get a book out, Teaching Centering Prayer to Children.
Okay, I will. Thank you very much.
Teaching Meditation to Children by Sister Madeline Simon. She died last year, but she was an English Sacred Heart sister. And I could give you a lot of stories about parents who meditate and the kinds of ways the children gravitate to the meditation.
Don't get me started. I might want to tell you a story about my grandchildren, but I'm not going to go there because it's time to end this segment.